Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off our video with the tale from the aisles of a Walmart where a little old man just trying to do his shopping became the target of some unnecessary judgment. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Snobhole needs to mind her own business. I'm a grocery/delivery vendor who stocks brand-specific items for supermarkets, but I'm not employed by any of the stores directly. I have a route of stores to visit and pull product from the back of a specific brand of food and refresh the supply. Most name-brand beer, sodas, chips, snack cakes, and other brands employ their own workers who aren't store employees. After reading this subreddit a bunch, I've started to scope out where in the store the OTC reading glasses sections are, in case I encounter any of the extra special hose beasts who insist that specifically I must help them, so I can lead them there to help them pick out a pair. Yesterday at Walmart, there was a little old gray-haired man shopping who would occasionally head spasm rather violently, like he'd just been stun-gunned in the neck, and each time would shout very loudly. I know from watching a cute TikToker who has a less severe form which resembles his motion that this could simply be Tourette's syndrome. People with this seem to have a signature verbal yelp, but don't have any cognitive choice in what the yelp is. The TikToker has a pretty cute yelp and explains some aspects of their own variety and experience in some posts. So the guy wasn't hurting anyone, but would just occasionally jerk his head very violently, but catch himself each time and would shout at a really high volume in the moment of surprise. As he went around shopping, he could be heard making this shout from 8+ aisles over. He wasn't interacting with anyone, just minding his own business and going off a shopping list like any other person. He came down on a somewhat crowded aisle I was working on at the time, and I just let him be, but saw other people staring and giving him some space. I understand also that some who have this experience a higher frequency of tics if under additional stress than just the normal frequency alone, such as by being judged in public by it, so I just let him do his thing. As he rounded the corner out of sight, a few people who were near me on the aisle muttered that the man was obviously crazy and that he shouldn't be out in public and might hurt someone. I explained a little about the possible condition and that this could actually be a pretty big milestone for him personally, being brave enough to go out in public and trying to control it, and being able to handle the stress of the stares and whispers, and that if people could stop talking about him, it could actually help reduce the outbursts possibly. One feral snobhole of a lady came up to me a little while later after he'd moved on several aisles over, clopping in her business Karen shoes the wrong direction down the aisle and on a mission. She sternly barked at me about him and told me that he needed to be removed because he was frightening other customers. I told her politely I wasn't employed by the store and that I didn't have any say in who gets removed. I tried explaining that I hadn't seen any frightened customers myself yet before getting cut off as she flapped her mouth blubber at me again about how concerned she was that he was going to hurt someone and that he didn't belong out in public. I was tempted to say that if anyone needed removing, it should be her, via her own 2 cloven hooves right out the door with that attitude. I was under a time crunch and didn't really have time to find a ladder to climb up in order to clock one across a chin that high up in the air. I just dismissed her away again that I'm not employed by the store, there's nothing I can do about it. I stated that I'd seen him for about the past hour and he hasn't made any sign of hurting anybody and that he's just, and then glared at her with eyebrows raised and leaning towards her, minding his own business. She squinted at me and scowled and then clopped away, and I didn't hear anything from her again. My main regret was not having available time to ask him if I could gather up what was left on his shopping list or help in some way. Carry on the good fight, Mr. Man. I'm on defense for you. It's really unfortunate that some people jump to conclusions and make snap judgments without considering the full picture. It sounds like you handled the situation with empathy and understanding. Well played, OP. And our second story. You need to be out of the store within 15 minutes of closing. So I used to work as a manager for a very large pizza chain that's franchised, and the franchisee at my particular store happened to be a supreme penny pincher to the point where our broom broke a year ago and they're still using it. So generally, after we close, it takes us anywhere from 10 minutes to 90 minutes to get the store cleaned up and all the next day prep done depending on how busy we've been that day. It's always busy. Now, the franchisee who runs the store is not happy with how long it takes us to do all this. It costs him too much, he says, and has been complaining to me incessantly about how we all need to be done with our work and clocked out within 15 minutes of closing. Something that's completely impossible 99% of the time. My record's 10 minutes for the quickest time and 2.5 hours for the longest, if anyone wanted to know. One day, after hearing him complain for the umpteenth time about how we take too long and how he could easily get all this done far faster than my team, I decided, okay, we'll be out within 15 minutes from closing. This particular day, however, was Christmas Eve. This is one of our most chaotic days of the year due to the combination of people who want pizza for the occasion, which is a ton, and a lack of staff, due to most of them saying they can't work over Christmas. Us managers usually have to double our hours over Christmas to keep the place running. So as expected, we have an absolutely chaotic day with everything running behind, all while being understaffed and swamped in orders. And then closing time comes. The franchisee is long gone home, leaving me with my 2 coworkers to close up and the store in an utter mess. Usually I get most stuff done before we even close, but there hadn't been a single opportunity that day. So the floor is littered with food and rubbish, and the stack of dishes to do is 4 people high. Literally, 4 piles a person high each. So I tell my coworkers to sweep and mop the floor while I blitz through all the cash counting and end-of-day paperwork, and we get all that done in about 10 minutes. Now we're standing there with a pile of dishes and all the next day prep to be done, and I look at them and say, well, the boss wants us out within 15 minutes, so I guess we don't have time to do all this. And with that, we leave. So the next day, which is of course Christmas, we're closed and can't work, but the boss decided to go in that morning and check everything was done correctly. I, of course, get a message from him wanting to know why nothing is done, and I just give him my professional reply. I made sure we were out of there within 15 minutes, just like you wanted. I found out a couple days later from a coworker that he had spent his entire Christmas day there doing all the cleaning and prep work on his own to get the store ready for Boxing Day. Something me and my team could have done in a couple of hours. All because he wanted us out of the store quickly at night to save money. He never complained about how long we took again. Edit. Just want to say that the boss is a nice guy overall. He's just really cheap and has no business sense. Sounds like pretty good ownership. Asked why, accepted the answer as doing what you asked, then taking care of business all by himself on Christmas Day. Bravo. And our next story. Karen, I'm gonna block your cars and then fire everybody. The first school where I taught had all parents park and walk in to pick their kids up so we could see each child going with their parent. Because this was usually pretty quick, parents made some interesting parking choices, like parking behind other parked cars if they wanted to be closer. Some teachers started to complain because if they needed to leave early that day, right at dismissal for an appointment or something, they would go out to find they were blocked in. Because of this, we started having a police officer monitor the lot at pickup. One day, he caught a parent in the handicapped space without any designation. The parent didn't try to lie about needing the space, but she did tell the officer she had permission from the school, which she definitely did not. A quick chat with the principal while the mom was in the building resulted in the officer handing the mom a ticket for parking there. She started yelling and screaming and ripped the ticket up and threw it all over. Here's where the officer really made this a good story. He rewrote the ticket, along with a second for littering just for her being so rude, lying, and generally just not handling the situation well. She started threatening the cop that she would fire him because her husband's a well-known businessman. So now she had 2 tickets, where it's pretty likely that if she had just been apologetic, she may not have even gotten the first one. She didn't ever park there or block any of our cars again. And you know what? If these entitled people had their butts beaten every time they pulled some crap like this in their life, it would have stopped in their mid-20s, even for the dumber ones. And our last story. Old Karen is blocking our driveway. Woke up this morning at about 7 a.m. checking my outside cameras as usual when I'm greeted by the infuriating sight of a newish gray Toyota sedan firmly blocking my driveway. Even though it's frigid by California standards, I go out to see if the person was inside and about to move, so I hopefully wouldn't have to escalate things. They were predictably not inside, so I called parking enforcement. It took them an hour and a half to get here, but apparently the person who blocked me in was in no rush. Thankfully, the parking enforcement officer was very nice. My mother and I handed over our IDs to prove we lived there, her house in front, mine in back, and he asked us if we wanted the car towed. I told him whatever gets it out of here. He told us to have a good day, and we went inside to watch the show from my security camera. The tow truck guy shows up, and him and the officer conversate. Now, with the unholy racket the tow truck guy was making, the very loud conversation they were having, and the car alarm going off, you'd think this person would come skipping down the street any minute, right? Nope. Wasn't until the tow truck guy and the officer were about to drive away that this older woman, later 50s maybe, makes her way down the street, seemingly no concern on her part, asking why her car was about to be hauled off. The way she was gesturing and pointing wildly, you'd think we did her a serious wrong. The officer very nicely pointed out, not to mention loudly, as this will be important later, no less than 5 times that she was blocking our driveway. She seemed to not comprehend that it was against the law, even after he showed her the pictures he took of her car while he literally spelled it out for her. You could hear him saying, "Here's the driveway, here's the property, and here's your car. You're blocking it." She tried to argue with the tow truck guy about getting her car back, but he did that shrug that clearly said, "Well, it's on the hook already. You'll have to pay." So she handed her card over while throwing our house dirty looks like she expected us to come out and berate her. No need. These guys were doing a bang-up job already. The kicker is, she didn't even have the car keys. This woman apparently handed them off to a relative, so she was obviously planning on leaving the car there all day. So she had to go all the way back to her house, which was pretty far down the street because it took her a while to get a spare key. And that time, an extremely nosy neighbor of ours across the street decided to stick her nose where it didn't belong, asking the men why the woman was getting towed, even though she saw her blocking us. The tow truck guy, awesome dude, literally gestured at our driveway saying they couldn't even get out, with that incredulous tone of voice that you only reserve for the slow-witted ones. In the end, she had to pay to get her car back. Her and the neighbor had a long talk, gesturing in our direction while conversing in snooty voices like anybody gave a damn. And the best part, she got to take home a nice present in the form of a ticket on her windshield. I hope for her sake, she not only learns not to do that stupid crap again, but that fines aren't doubled on holidays. Oh well. What I can't understand, even 6 months later, is how the F she's been driving for God knows how long, yet you don't seem to know what a driveway is? Much less that it's against the law to block it? And the look she kept giving our house, like, how dare you inconvenience me? Luckily, she's at least smart enough to not have done it again. What a morning wake-up call. Literally, dealing with a driveway blocker is the last thing anyone needs, especially when they seem completely oblivious to the rules of the road. It's like she thought she owned the whole street or something. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.